It was a Sunday evening in late October, the kind of night that smells like rain and roast chicken. My son, Michael, had driven down from Dallas for dinner. We hadn't seen each other in weeks, and I was looking forward to something ordinary, a meal, a few laughs, maybe a talk about his new job. We were halfway through dessert when my phone buzzed. One short vibration. Nothing unusual about that, except the message. Get up and go. Don't say anything to your son. No name. No number. Just those words. For a moment, I thought it was a prank. Then the second message came. Now, Rick. Leave. Through the back. My hand froze around the coffee mug. I glanced up at Michael. He was talking about his coworker, oblivious. Everything okay, Dad? Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. Just spam. I set the phone down, but my pulse was hammering. Whoever sent that text knew my name, and knew I was with my son. Another vibration. You have 60 seconds. That's when the fear hit, not for me, but for him. Something in the tone, flat, urgent, confident, told me this wasn't random. I looked out the kitchen window, a car idled by the curb, lights off. A dark shape behind the wheel. Michael, I said slowly, grab your jacket. He frowned. Why? Because we're going for a drive. He laughed. In the middle of dinner? I was already standing. Humor me. He shrugged, still half smiling, and went to get his jacket. I slipped my phone into my pocket and unlocked the back door quietly. The air outside was cold, sharp enough to make the hairs on my arms stand up. We moved fast, cutting through the yard toward the truck. I didn't tell him why, couldn't, but he must have felt something in my voice because he didn't argue. Once inside, I started the engine and pulled away without headlights for the first 100 feet. Only when we hit the main road did I breathe again. Dad, what's going on? I kept my eyes forward. No idea yet. He snorted. You always said you hated surprises? Still do, I said. Buckle up. At the next red light, my phone buzzed again. Good. Keep driving. Turn off your phone's location. Whoever this was, they were watching. I killed the GPS, switched the phone to airplane mode, and turned west toward the old highway. My mind was racing. Who could know where we were? Who could text that confidently, like they had eyes on me? Michael was quiet for a while. Then he said softly, Is this about Mom? That hit like a hammer. My ex-wife, Linda, had remarried a man named Grant 2 years ago, a real estate broker with too much money and too little patience. We hadn't spoken much since. Michael still split holidays between us, always insisting everything was fine. But now, with those texts buzzing like hornets in my memory, I wasn't so sure. We drove 20 miles before stopping at a roadside diner. I parked at the edge of the lot, far from the neon lights. Dad, Michael said, finally frustrated, you're freaking me out. Tell me what's happening. I stared at the phone, hands shaking. The messages were gone. Deleted. Not by me. That's when the last one appeared, a single line, time-stamped a minute ago. If you go home, you both die. My blood went cold. I turned to my son, trying to keep my voice steady. Something's wrong, kid. And until I figure out who's playing this game, we're not going back. He looked at me, half afraid, half disbelieving. You think someone's after you? No, I said. After us. The diner lights flickered in the distance. The world had shifted, quietly, invisibly, and I could feel the floor dropping beneath our feet. That text hadn't just changed the night. It had changed everything. We stayed parked behind that diner for almost an hour. The rain had started again, slow, persistent, tapping against the windshield like a ticking clock. Michael kept glancing at me, trying to read something from my face. Dad, he said finally, you're scaring me. I know, I said. I'm scared too. I watched the rearview mirror. Nothing but wet asphalt and headlights sliding past. Still, my gut wouldn't settle. Whoever sent those messages had been specific. precise. They knew where we were, and they knew when to tell me to leave. That meant one thing: whoever they were, they'd been watching for a while. I pulled my wallet from my pocket and took out a folded piece of paper, an address written in my old handwriting. A place I hadn't been to in almost a decade. "Where are we going?" Michael asked. "Somewhere no one will think to look." The old cabin was about an hour north, tucked into the woods past Cedar Creek. I'd bought it back when Linda and I were still married. It was supposed to be a fishing retreat, but after the divorce, I stopped going. I figured tonight was as good a time as any to dust off ghosts. We drove in silence, the road growing narrower, the trees closing in around us. Every few miles I checked the mirror. Nothing. Still, my hand hovered near the glove compartment where I kept an old revolver. When we finally reached the cabin, it looked the same: weathered boards, sagging porch, and a mailbox full of cobwebs. I parked the truck behind a stand of pines, killed the engine, and listened. No sounds but rain and cicadas. Michael followed me inside, shivering a little. "This place smells like the 70s, he muttered. "It probably remembers them too," I said. We lit a kerosene lamp and sat at the table. I could feel him staring at me. "All right," he said. "No more secrets. Who sent those messages?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But they knew we were being watched. And that means someone close." He frowned. "Close, like who?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I pulled out my phone and turned airplane mode off. No new messages. Just silence. Then I opened my call log and froze. 2 missed calls, both from Linda. One timestamped 10 minutes after the first message. My stomach turned. "Your mother called," I said quietly. "Mom? Why?" "I don't know. But she knew something." I dialed her back. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. Michael leaned forward. "You think Mom's in danger?" "Maybe. Or maybe she's part of it." His jaw tightened. "Dad, come on." "I hope I'm wrong," I said. "But whoever sent those messages knew her name wasn't safe in my phone anymore." He looked like he wanted to argue, but then he saw something in my face and stopped. We slept in shifts that night, or tried to. Every creak of the wood, every gust of wind felt like footsteps. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed again. "Unknown number, you did well to leave. They came 10 minutes after you left the house." I stared at it, pulse thudding. "They plural." "Dad?" Michael mumbled from the couch. "Go back to sleep, kid." But I couldn't. I typed a reply. "Who are you? What do they want?" The dots appeared. Then stopped. Then appeared again. Finally. "They want what's in your safe." My throat went dry. I hadn't told anyone about the safe. Not even Michael. It was built into the wall behind my workbench back home, small, hidden, the kind you'd miss unless you knew where to look. Inside were documents from when I sold the auto shop years ago, contracts, bank records, and one old external drive. I'd never even plugged it in. It was something my accountant had left me before he died, labeled "Backups, confidential." "Dad?" Michael sat up now, fully awake. "What is it?" I showed him the message. His face drained of color. "You think Mom?" I didn't answer. The question didn't need words. I typed another message. "What's on the drive?" This time the reply came fast. "Evidence. Of what your wife and her husband did with your name." My heart sank. The storm outside rattled the windows like it was confirming it. Michael stood. "You're saying Mom and Grant stole from you?" "Not just me," I said. "If that drive's what I think it is, they'd been laundering money through shell accounts for years, in my name." He shook his head. "That's insane." "Yeah," I said. "So's a message telling me to run." He rubbed his face, pacing. "We have to call the police." I sighed. "And tell them what?" "That a ghost texted me and said my ex-wife's laundering money?" They'll laugh us off the station. So what do we do? I looked toward the rain-soaked window. We find that drive before they do. The lamp flickered, throwing shadows across the walls. Somewhere outside, a branch cracked, loud enough to make both of us freeze. Michael whispered, "Dad, you think they followed us?" I listened. Another sound, faint footsteps crunching wet leaves. The hairs on my neck stood up. I blew out the lamp and drew the revolver from the glove box. "Stay down," I whispered. The footsteps stopped. Then came a soft knock on the door. The knock was soft, almost polite. Not the kind of knock you expect when you've been told people are coming for your life. I held up my hand, signaling Michael to stay behind the kitchen island. His eyes were wide, reflecting the lamplight like an animal caught in high beams. I stepped quietly to the door, revolver low but ready. Another knock. "Rick Sanders?" A woman's voice, steady, low, urgent. "I'm here to help. Please open the door." My pulse pounded. "Name?" I called through the wood. "Dana Cole. I'm an investigator. Your lawyer, James Turner, hired me." James. My jaw tightened. He hadn't mentioned an investigator. But James also knew better than to improvise. "Step back from the door," I said. "I'm already back," she replied. "I can show ID." I risked a glance through the side window. A woman in her 40s, raincoat, hair slick from the storm, holding up a leather wallet with a badge and photo ID. Hard to fake in a downpour. I cracked the door just enough to see her eyes. They were sharp, scanning, but not hostile. "Show it closer." She held the ID up. "Dana Cole, licensed private investigator, Austin, Texas." "What's the password?" I asked. She frowned. "What password?" "Exactly," I said, and opened the door. She stepped in quickly, shutting it behind her. The smell of rain followed her inside. "You're hard to find," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "I like it that way." Michael peeked over the island. "Who is she?" "A friend, I hope," I said. Dana set her bag on the table and pulled out a file folder sealed in plastic. "Your lawyer said if things went bad, I was to deliver this to you personally." "What's in it?" I asked. "Everything," she said simply. "Proof of what your ex-wife and her husband have been doing for years, under your name." Michael came around the island, disbelief on his face. "Mom? Are you serious?" Dana gave him a sympathetic look. "I'm sorry, kid. But yes." She spread out the contents of the folder. Copies of bank transfers, property deeds, forged signatures, my name on every one. And then, the kicker, photos. Linda and Grant meeting with a man I didn't know, exchanging envelopes, smiling like conspirators. "These are just the highlights," Dana said. "The real evidence is on a drive hidden in your safe. They've been moving money through your old business accounts. Offshore. When the feds start digging, guess whose name's on top?" I felt the floor tilt under me. "So the messages." "Not from me," Dana said. "I've been trying to track who sent them too. Someone inside their circle, maybe. Someone who wants you alive long enough to blow this open." Michael's voice cracked. "You're telling me Mom set Dad up?" Dana hesitated. She may not have started it. But she signed things she shouldn't have. And when she realized how deep it went, she and Grant decided the easiest solution was to move Rick out of the picture. I sat down hard. The revolver lay on the table between us, a silent witness. Dana leaned forward. "Listen to me. They're desperate now. Hanson, the broker running their transfers, disappeared last week. That drive is leverage. If they get it first, you're ruined. If we get it, you're clear." Michael's hands were shaking. "We have to go back to the house and get it." "Not yet," Dana said. "They'll be watching. We need to make sure the house is clean, and we need a plan. This isn't a movie where you kick down the door and walk away. These are people with money, contacts, and a lot to lose." I rubbed my eyes. The weight of betrayal pressed down like a vice. I'd raised Michael. Fed him. Loved him. And Linda, the woman who'd once promised me forever, had used my name as a shield for her husband's crimes. Michael put a hand on my shoulder. Dad, what do we do? I looked at him. My son. My blood. The one person I'd promised to protect. We fight, I said. But smart. Dana nodded. First, we need a copy of that drive. Then we'll decide who to give it to. Feds, press, or both. But we can't move until we know what's on it exactly. And we can't let them know you're aware of it. Michael swallowed hard. So we're staying here? For tonight, Dana said. At dawn we'll scout the house. If it's clear, we go in, get the drive, and vanish again. I stared at the documents on the table. My signature, my name, my life turned into a weapon. I've spent 55 years being the reliable one, I said softly. The man people can count on. I guess it's time to show them what that really means. Dana zipped the folder back up. You'll have your chance. Outside, the rain eased. The woods dripped quietly, like a clock counting down. I turned off the lamp, checked the revolver, and looked at Michael. Get some sleep, kid. Tomorrow we take back our name. Dawn came pale and thin through the mist. The forest smelled like wet pine and diesel. Dana was already up, coffee steaming in a chipped mug, her eyes scanning the dirt road through a pair of old binoculars. Anything? I asked. Nothing, she said. But that doesn't mean no one's watching. Michael was by the truck, checking the tires for tracking devices, an idea Dana had insisted on. He'd barely slept, but adrenaline had replaced rest. He looked older somehow, the boy burned off by fear. You sure you want to do this? I asked him. Mom set you up, Dad, he said, straightening. I'm not sitting this out. I didn't argue. The truth had a way of sharpening people fast. By 7, we were on the road. The cabin faded behind us like a half-forgotten memory, swallowed by trees. The drive back to town was quiet except for the hum of the engine and the steady clink of my revolver against the dashboard. Dana had mapped the approach, side street first, then the service road behind the house. If they're watching, they'll expect you through the front, she said. We take the garage. The house came into view just after 8. My stomach nodded. From a distance, everything looked normal, sprinklers running, mailbox standing, blinds drawn. But the longer you stare at something you used to call home, the more wrong it looks after betrayal. We parked 3 houses down. Dana handed each of us an earpiece, her voice low and calm. We get in, grab the drive, and get out. No heroics. You see someone, you walk away. Understood? Michael nodded. I did too. We moved fast and quiet, cutting across the neighbor's yard, through the fence gate I'd never fixed properly. The back door was locked, but I still had my key. I turned it slow, praying the old hinges wouldn't squeal. They didn't. Inside, the house was too clean. Not the kind of clean you'd get from living, the kind you'd get from staging. Everything polished, air freshener faint but deliberate. It was like someone had scrubbed away every trace of who I used to be. Dana checked the hallway, gun drawn. Clear. We went straight to the garage. The smell of motor oil hit me like nostalgia. My workbench was still there, same dents, same burn marks from the soldering iron. I knelt by the far wall, feeling for the loose panel I'd hidden years ago. Found it. The screws came out easy, too easy. The safe behind it sat slightly ajar. My breath caught. Dad? Michael whispered. I swung the door open. Empty. The drive was gone. Dana swore under her breath. They beat us to it. I stood slowly, heart pounding. How? No one knew where. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered on speaker. A man's voice, smooth, controlled. You're too late, Ms. Cole. Tell Rick the game's over. Who is this? She snapped. You know who. Then a click, and silence. She stared at the phone, jaw tight. Grant. Michael slammed his fist against the workbench. That bastard! I took a breath, forced my mind to slow. Anger wouldn't help. Patterns would. Grant's not the type to destroy leverage, I said. He'll hold the drive until he figures out what to do with it. That means we've got a window. Dana nodded. You're right. And I think I know where he'd stash it, his office. Downtown, Ridgeway Financial. Michael frowned. You've been tracking him? She gave a humorless smile. It's my job. I looked at the empty safe one last time. The betrayal felt heavier than the metal door. Then we go there. Not yet, Dana said. Too risky during business hours. Cameras everywhere, armed guards. We wait till tonight. I nodded reluctantly. So what now? She hesitated. Now we make sure Linda knows she's running out of time. I turned. Meaning what? Meaning I send her a message that makes her sweat. She typed fast, her thumbs tapping like small explosions. We know about the drive. We know about Grant. If you want to stay out of prison, call me before noon. Then she hit send. The clock ticked. 10 minutes. 15. Nothing. Then, at 11:47, Dana's phone lit up. Linda. Dana put it on speaker. Dana. Linda's voice cracked through static. Please, you don't understand. I never meant for Rick to get dragged into this. Grant said it was just numbers. Save it. Dana cut her off. We have the paperwork, Linda. It's over. A pause. Then, almost a whisper. You don't have everything. What's that supposed to mean? I asked. Grant's not working alone, Linda said. He's... A sharp sound interrupted her, a crash, a scream, the phone dropping. Then static. Linda? Dana shouted. Linda! Nothing but dead air. Michael's face went pale. Was that? I was already moving. She's in trouble. We find her. Dana grabbed her bag. We don't even know where she is. Yes, we do, I said. If she called from home, her phone will still ping the old tower near the lake. Michael met my eyes. Dad, you think Grant? I think, I said, checking the cylinder of the revolver. We're about to find out what kind of man he really is. The sky was turning the color of bruised metal when we hit the lake road. The asphalt shimmered with rain, the air thick and heavy with that storm smell that always comes before something bad happens. Dana sat in the passenger seat, laptop open, tracking the signal through a burner GPS program. Michael sat in the back, his fists clenched on his knees, silent but vibrating with tension. She's stationary, Dana said. Signals coming from near the old Miller Lake property. That's my old fishing cabin, I finished. We used to take Michael there when he was little. Michael leaned forward. Why would she go there? Because Grant doesn't know it exists, I said. She must have run. Or she's being held there, Dana added grimly. We pulled off the highway and onto the gravel road that wound through the pines. Every curve felt like it hid a secret. The closer we got, the slower I drove. Finally, through the trees, the cabin came into view, smaller than I remembered, its windows dark, its porch light flickering in the wind. Kill the lights, Dana whispered. I cut the engine. We coasted to a stop. The silence that followed was too clean, too deliberate. Dana pulled her pistol and motioned toward the back. Stay behind me. Michael, you watch the perimeter. Rick with me. I drew my revolver, the weight of it familiar and grounding. The smell of wet pine mixed with the metallic tang of adrenaline. We moved fast, low, through the wet grass. Every step felt louder than it should. When we reached the porch, Dana crouched, tested the doorknob. Locked. Windows. I murmured. We circled to the side, where one window was slightly ajar. Dana went first, sliding it open and slipping through like smoke. I followed, landing in the dark kitchen. The air inside was stale, dust, mildew, and something else. Fear. Linda? I whispered. No answer. We crept down the hallway. The boards creaked under our weight, the kind of sound that makes you feel hunted. At the end of the hall, a faint light flickered under the bedroom door. Dana signaled 3 fingers, count of 3, then pushed the door open. Linda was sitting on the floor, hands tied, lips split. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Rick, she gasped. You shouldn't have come. Where's Grant? I asked. He's gone, she whispered. But he'll be back. Dana cut the ropes, her movements quick. Who else was here? Linda shook her head weakly. 2 men. His clients. They wanted the drive. Michael's voice came from behind us. Dad! We turned. He was in the doorway, holding something small and metallic. I found this outside, he said. It was under the steps. It was a tracking beacon. Damn it, Dana hissed. They knew we'd come. Almost on cue, headlights swept across the window. A car, no, 2, pulled up outside. Back! Dana barked. Lights off! We hit the floor as doors slammed and boots crunched gravel. I heard voices, low, confident, close. Check around. They're here somewhere. I crawled to the window, peeked out. 2 men, both armed, moving in formation. A third figure stayed by the car, tall, trench coat, phone in hand. Grant. Linda's voice trembled. He'll kill us all. Not tonight, I said. Dana's eyes met mine. We can't outgun them. Then we outsmart them, I said. The cellar door, it leads under the house to the lake. We can slip out. Michael helped Linda up while Dana covered the window. We moved fast, the house creaking around us. The cellar hatch groaned open, the smell of damp earth rising up like old secrets. Go, I whispered. They went first, Linda, then Michael, then Dana. I stayed last, closing the hatch behind me just as the front door upstairs crashed open. We crawled through the narrow crawl space, mud soaking our clothes. Voices echoed above, the men searching, kicking doors, cursing. Light seeped through the cracks in the boards overhead. I held my breath. Then a voice, Grant's, calm, cold, close. Rick's too sentimental to leave her. He's here. Dana motioned to keep moving. The tunnel sloped down toward the lake, opening behind a curtain of reeds. We emerged dripping and filthy, half crouched in the mud. Dana scanned the shoreline. 2 minutes, maybe less, before they realize. Linda clutched my arm. Rick, the drive, it's not what you think. What is it then? She swallowed hard. It's evidence of money transfers, yes, but also names. Politicians, companies. Grant's blackmail network. If he loses it, he loses protection. He'll kill anyone in his way. So that's why they're hunting us, I said. It's not about me. It's about everyone on that drive. Michael stared at her. You helped him? Tears mixed with the rain on her face. I didn't know what it was at first. By the time I found out, it was too late. Dana was already moving. We have to go. Now. We ran along the lake's edge, the mud sucking at our boots, hearts pounding. Behind us, the cabin lights flared, then an explosion ripped through the trees. The blast threw us into the mud. I turned in time to see fire bloom from the windows, orange against the dark water. Michael coughed. They blew it up. Dana pulled him up. No, they're covering tracks. They think we were inside. Linda stared at the flames, shaking. He'll come after you now, Rick. He'll never stop. I looked back at the burning cabin, my old life going up with it. Then we finish this before he gets the chance. Dana met my eyes. We'll need help. And I know someone who owes me a favor. I nodded. Then let's end this. The fire crackled behind us, consuming everything it touched. Ahead, the road curved into darkness. For the first time since that message at dinner, I wasn't running anymore. I was hunting. We drove through the night until the glow of the burning cabin disappeared behind the tree line. Linda sat in the back seat, trembling under a blanket. Michael stared out the window, jaw tight. Dana sat up front, eyes on the road, voice low and steady as she worked the next move in her head. By dawn, we were parked outside a nondescript warehouse on the edge of town. Dana killed the lights and nodded at the door. "Friend of mine runs digital forensics here," she said. "Ex-Fed. Doesn't ask questions, just takes cash." Inside smelled like coffee and ozone. Old servers hummed in racks against the walls. A heavy-set man with a beard looked up from a laptop. "Cole," he said. "Didn't think I'd see you again." "Long story," Dana replied. "We need a ghost connection. And a secure way to leak something without leaving fingerprints." He eyed me and Michael. "Family business?" "Something like that," I said. Dana turned to me. "If we can't get the drive back physically, we can make Grant think we already have. Spook him into moving his leverage somewhere we can grab it." I frowned. "How?" "By feeding him his own poison," she said. "We leak a doctored version of one file, one that looks real enough to scare him. He'll panic, consolidate his data, and bring the real drive into play. Then we take it." Michael spoke up for the first time in hours. "And if he doesn't bite? Then he comes after us anyway," Dana said. "But on our terms," Linda whispered. "He won't believe it unless it comes from inside his circle." I looked at her. "Meaning you?" She closed her eyes. "Meaning me." Dana raised an eyebrow. "You're willing?" Linda nodded weakly. "I've done enough damage. Let me help fix it." The bearded man wheeled over a laptop. "I can spoof an email from Hansen's account," he said. "Grant will think it's a dead man's insurance policy, something hidden that just resurfaced. We attach a snippet of your drive and a warning. He'll think his network's compromised." Dana turned to me. "We need a hook file. Something that looks like blackmail but isn't. Do you have anything?" I thought about it. In my home safe there had been not just the drive but also a few old client invoices from my shop days, names, numbers, tax IDs. Nothing criminal, but dressed up right, it could look like evidence. "I've got copies on my email," I said. "Invoices from when I sold the shop. We make them look like a shell company." The forensics guy cracked his knuckles. "Give me 30 minutes. While he worked, Michael sat beside me. "Dad," he said quietly, "if this works, what happens to Mom?" I looked at Linda, her face pale in the glow of the monitors. "That's up to the feds," I said. "I'm not a judge. I just want the truth out." Michael nodded but didn't look relieved. "I still can't believe she did this." "I can't," I said softly. "People get scared. Scared people do stupid things." The forensics guy spun the laptop around. "Drafts ready?" "Looks like Hansen stashed a hidden backup and sent it to a contact before he vanished. Contains partial evidence of transfers and blackmail. If Grant sees this, he'll freak." Dana grinned without humor. "Send it." We watched as he hit enter. The fake email shot out into the void, a digital lure dangling in the dark. Dana turned to Linda. "You'll get a call soon. Play it like you're terrified. Say you've seen the file. Say you'll meet him somewhere neutral with the rest." Linda's hands shook. "Where?" "We'll choose the spot," Dana said. "We'll control the ground." She looked at me. "You up for this?" I nodded. "I'm tired of running." We spent the next hour prepping. Dana picked a location, an abandoned rail yard on the outskirts of town, plenty of cover, no cameras, multiple exits. The plan was simple. Linda lures Grant there under the pretense of handing over the backup. We hide, record everything, and when he brings the real drive, Dana's contact from the feds, quiet but reliable, moves in. The drive becomes evidence. Grant's protection collapses. Michael frowned. "What if he brings muscle?" "He will," Dana said. "That's why we have to get him rattled enough to show up sloppy." I looked at Linda. "You sure you can do this?" She met my eyes, guilt and resolve fighting on her face. "I owe you both more than an apology. By late afternoon, her phone buzzed. Grant. She answered on speaker, voice trembling on cue. Grant, I saw the file. Hansen sent it before he disappeared. It's everything. Transfers, names. If you don't meet me tonight, it goes public. A long silence. Then Grant's voice, low and dangerous. Where? Old rail yard. She whispered. Midnight. Another pause. You'll bring the drive? Yes. She lied. Good, he said. If you're lying, Linda, it's the last time you ever do. Click. Dana exhaled slowly. He's coming. Michael looked at me, eyes hard. And we'll be waiting. I felt the old mechanic in me, the man who fixes problems, not flees them, wake up again. Yeah, I said. Time to finish the job. Outside, the storm had moved on, leaving the sky sharp and clear. In the distance, the sun slipped below the horizon like a coin disappearing into a slot. We packed up our gear, loaded into the truck, and headed out. This time, we weren't running from a trap. We were setting one. Midnight has a sound of its own. It's not silence, it's the hum of things waiting to happen. The rail yard stretched out under a bruised sky, rows of rusted freight cars and sagging cranes casting long shadows under a pale moon. The air smelled of iron and rain-soaked dirt. We parked 2 blocks away. Dana and I set up in an abandoned switch house overlooking the yard. From there, we had a clear line of sight on the meeting point, an open stretch of concrete framed by dead rails. Michael stayed in the truck with a walkie and his phone, ready to call Dana's contact at the first sign of trouble. He didn't like sitting out, but this wasn't a place for beginners. Down below, Linda waited by a flickering floodlight, her figure small but steady. A single black duffel bag sat at her feet, empty, just for show. Dana checked her watch. He'll come from the west side. There's only one way in without tripping the alarms. I nodded, watching the horizon. My pulse was calm, almost unnaturally so. Fear had burned out days ago, replaced by something harder, purpose. Headlights appeared between the trees. A black Mercedes rolled in slow, tires hissing on wet gravel. It stopped 30 yards from Linda. Grant stepped out first, same designer coat, same smug posture I remembered from every courtroom and family event after the divorce. 2 men followed, each carrying a gun under his jacket. Grant's voice echoed across the yard. You picked a hell of a place for a reunion, Linda. Where's the drive? She called back. He smiled faintly. You first. Linda bent, unzipped the empty bag, showing nothing inside. You think I'm stupid enough to bring it here? He chuckled. Yes. Because I know you. Dana whispered. He's stalling. He wants to see if anyone else is here. Let him, I said. Grant took a few steps closer, hands behind his back. You should have stayed quiet. Hansen was an accident. You could have lived comfortably. Linda's voice cracked. Comfort isn't worth looking over your shoulder every day. He tilted his head. Then maybe you shouldn't have looked at things that didn't belong to you. Dana's finger hovered near her trigger. He's armed. I adjusted the binoculars. The moonlight caught a glint of metal in Grant's right hand, a small silenced pistol. Wait, I murmured. He's testing her. Rick, Dana warned. If he shoots, I'll move. Grant took another step. Where is it, Linda? I mailed it. She lied. If anything happens to me, it goes public. Grant smiled. You always were dramatic. He raised the gun. I didn't think, I just acted. I kicked open the switch house door and fired once into the air. The sound ripped through the night, echoing like thunder. Dana was right behind me, moving fast and low. Grant spun, shouting, Find them! His men fanned out, one ducked behind a railcar, the other sprinted toward the loading dock. Dana took the first down clean with a warning shot that clipped his shoulder. He screamed, dropped his weapon, and hit the ground. I moved toward Linda, keeping Grant in sight. Drop it! I shouted. He laughed, that same smug, polished laugh that had haunted every courtroom settlement. "You don't have the stomach for this, Rick. Try me." He smirked. "You think this is about revenge? It's business. You were a name, a shield, nothing more. Don't flatter yourself." "That name's about to put you in prison," I said. He stepped closer. "You think the feds scare me? They work for me." Dana shouted from behind a railcar. "Not tonight, they don't." Grant froze. For the first time, uncertainty cracked his face. 2 unmarked SUVs rolled in from the east, no sirens, just headlights cutting through the dark. Agents poured out, guns drawn. Dana's contact, a tall woman in a gray jacket, led them, badge glinting. Grant turned furious. "You set me up." Linda whispered. "No, Grant. You set yourself up." He raised his gun again, toward her this time. I fired first. The shot hit his shoulder, spinning him around. The gun clattered onto the concrete. He staggered, staring at the blood spreading across his coat. "You," he hissed. "You never had the guts." "Guess I found some," I said. The agents swarmed in, shouting commands, taking him down hard. His bodyguards surrendered without a fight. Michael's voice crackled through the radio. "Dad? Is it over?" I looked at Dana, who was watching the agents bag the evidence. She nodded once. "It's over." Linda sank to the ground, shaking. I knelt beside her. "You okay?" She nodded weakly. "I didn't think you'd come." "I almost didn't," I said. "Then I remembered who you used to be." She managed a faint smile. "That man, he would have killed us both." "Yeah," I said quietly. "But now he's got a lifetime to think about it." The agents hauled Grant past us, his eyes locked on mine, not with anger, but with something colder. Fear. He leaned close as they pushed him by. "You have no idea who's really behind this," he muttered. "I'm just the middleman." Then he was gone, swallowed by flashing lights and the sound of handcuffs. Dana exhaled, holstering her gun. "We'll find out what's on that drive. I'll make sure it gets to the right people." I watched the black SUVs disappear into the night. "Make sure it doesn't vanish into a vault like everything else." "I'll try," she said. "But Rick, you just made some very dangerous people nervous." I gave a tired smile. "Good. Let them lose some sleep for once." The floodlight flickered out, leaving the rail yard bathed in moonlight and silence. For the first time in weeks, the air felt clean. But deep down, I knew Grant's last words weren't a bluff. There was more. Something bigger behind all of this. And it wasn't done with us yet. Morning came gray and cold. The kind of morning that feels like the hangover of the night before. The rail yard was swarming with agents, reporters, flashing lights. They'd arrived fast, too fast, which told me someone upstairs already knew this story would make headlines. Dana stood beside one of the SUVs, arms crossed, eyes sharp but distant. She'd made her calls, done her duty. Now the cleanup had begun. Linda sat on the back bumper of an ambulance, a blanket around her shoulders. Michael stayed beside her, silent, protective. He'd seen too much in too little time. I leaned against the truck, watching as they loaded Grant into a medical van, his arm bandaged and his eyes hollow. He didn't look at me. Didn't have to. The damage was done. Dana walked over, handing me a coffee. "They'll be taking statements for hours. You ready for that?" "Not really," I said. "But I've been waiting years for somebody to finally ask what the hell happened." She half smiled. "You might not like the answers." 2 agents approached, one young, one older, both wearing those government-issue expressions that hide everything. The older one spoke first. "Mr. Sanders, we'll need your formal statement. Also, we've secured the drive from Grant's car. It's being processed now." "You've seen what's on it?" I asked. "Only the surface," he said carefully. "But we already have names. Big ones. Federal contractors, PAC donors, even a few law enforcement officials. Whatever this was, it runs deep. I let out a long breath. And what happens now? He gave the bureaucratic shrug of a man used to loose ends. Now we follow the evidence. Which was another way of saying, now we bury it carefully. After they walked away, Dana muttered, Translation, half of this will disappear before lunch. Then we leak the rest. I said. Not yet, she warned. Let's see what they try to hide first. By noon, the media vans were already camped at the gate. Reporters shouted questions. Were you involved in the scandal? Did your ex-wife cooperate? Their microphones thrust forward like weapons. Michael stepped between them and me, eyes blazing. Back off! He's done talking! I put a hand on his shoulder. It's all right. Let them get their sound bites. Truth has its own way of spreading. We finally got back to the cabin we borrowed from Dana's friend, somewhere out past Georgetown. Quiet. Unlisted. Safe, for now. Linda slept most of the afternoon. The adrenaline crash hit her hard. I didn't blame her. Guilt has a way of turning into exhaustion. Dana sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, skimming reports. The drive's authentic, she said finally. Grant wasn't bluffing. He was part of a laundering network tied to 3 defense contractors and a senator's re-election fund. That's who's been pulling the strings. I stared at the wall. So when he said he was just the middleman, he meant it, she said. And whoever sits at the top just lost their shield. Michael frowned. So we're not safe yet. Dana shook her head. No. These kinds of people don't go to jail, they go quiet. And they make problems disappear. I felt a cold weight settle in my chest. Then we stay ahead of them. She glanced at me. That means disappearing again. You, your son, your ex-wife, new addresses, new routines. At least until the press dies down. Michael looked frustrated. We finally did something right, and now we have to hide. Welcome to justice, Dana said. It's never as clean as it looks in the movies. That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat alone on the porch. The crickets were loud, the air thick with the smell of cedar. I thought about Grant's last words. You have no idea who's really behind this. He was right. And that terrified me more than the gun he'd held. I pulled out my phone, turned it on for the first time in days. Dozens of messages poured in, news alerts, missed calls, reporters, old friends. But one caught my eye. Unknown number. No subject. Just a single line of text. You played your part well, Rick. Now stay quiet. No signature. My blood ran cold. I showed Dana the message the next morning. She didn't look surprised. I expected that, she said. They're watching. Testing if you'll talk. So what do we do? She closed her laptop. We let them think we're done. Linda came into the kitchen, pale but alert. Done? You think they'll just let it go? No, I said quietly. But maybe they'll relax long enough for us to see who they are. Dana smirked. Now you're thinking like me. Michael poured coffee, trying to sound braver than he felt. So what's next, Dad? I looked out the window at the endless Texas sky. We stay alive. And we make sure the truth doesn't die before the ink dries. He nodded. And after that? After that, I said, we find whoever sent that first message. The one that saved our lives. Because that was the piece that still didn't fit, the unknown voice that had warned me at dinner. The one that had known where we were and what was coming. Whoever they weren't finished. A week passed, but the sense of being watched never left. Even in the borrowed cabin, with curtains drawn and phones off, I could feel it, that faint pressure on the back of the neck like a hand you can't see. Dana kept working through the drive with her contacts. Every night she'd update me, more names, more numbers, more rot. It wasn't just one senator, or 3 contractors. It was a web, money moving through charities, shell corporations, offshore banks. Grant was only a spoke. The hub was still hidden. And then, late one night, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Just 3 words. Meet me alone. Attached was an address, a diner off I-35, 20 miles south. Midnight. I showed it to Dana. She frowned. Could be a trap. Could be an answer, I said. Michael overheard. I'm coming. No, I said. You stay with your mother. This is my mess. Dana hesitated. I'll park across the street. No closer. You go in first. I nodded. There. The diner looked like every diner at midnight, neon buzzing, a few trucks parked out front, the smell of fried food leaking through the door. The waitress barely glanced at me when I came in. In the far booth, a man sat with his back to the wall. Mid-40s, weathered face, suit that didn't quite fit. He looked like someone who'd seen a lot of rooms like this and left most of them worse than he'd found them. You're Rick, he said as I slid into the booth. Depends who's asking. He smiled faintly. Call me Marshall. Recognition stirred in the back of my mind. CIA? I asked quietly. Not anymore, he said. Now I'm just a guy who doesn't like being on the wrong side of history. You sent the texts, I said. He nodded once. I was embedded in Grant's network, tracking offshore transfers. I saw your name. When the order came to neutralize liability, I decided I'd had enough. I sent the warning. I stared at him. Why? He shrugged. Because you didn't belong in this. You were a name they stole, not a player. And because I've got a son about your boy's age. Sometimes you do the right thing, even if it gets you burned. I leaned forward. Grant said he was the middleman. Who's the hub? Marshall sipped his coffee. That's the question, isn't it? You don't know? Oh, I know, he said. But knowing and proving are different things. The hub is a consortium of contractors and a handful of politicians. Think of it as a revolving door of favors. Grant was their accountant. Hansen was their bagman. Your wife was their shield. Me? He gave a humorless laugh. I was their eyes. I clenched my jaw. And now? Now they'll want me dead too, he said simply. But I've got something they want. I waited. He slid a thumb drive across the table. The real drive. Not the one Grant had. The one Hansen made before he vanished. Names, offshore accounts, evidence of blackmail payments, everything. I stared at it. Why give it to me? Because you've got nothing left to lose, he said. And because they won't suspect you have it. They think the drive Grant had is all there is. This one? This one could bring the whole thing down. I didn't touch it. You could go to the press yourself. They'd bury me before the ink dried, he said. You, though, your noise. Ordinary noise. That's your advantage. I studied him. You're asking me to finish what you started. I'm asking you to survive long enough to hand it to someone who can't be bought, he said. I finally picked up the drive, feeling its weight, heavier than it looked. What's on here? I asked quietly. Does it name the person who ordered my murder? Marshall's eyes darkened. It names a dozen. But one you'll recognize. Who? He hesitated. The senator who pushed for the privatization of the contracts your shop once serviced. The one whose campaign your ex-wife donated to. I felt the air leave my lungs. They used my money to fund him. He nodded. And now he's using his office to protect them. If this goes public, it's not just Grant going down. It's the senator. It's his donors. It's their whole machine. I slipped the drive into my jacket. What happens to you now? He smiled faintly. You won't see me again. He stood, tossed some bills on the table, and walked out into the night. From the window, I watched him cross the lot, his silhouette swallowed by darkness. A second later, a car door shut and taillights flickered. Then he was gone. Dana entered the diner a moment later, sliding into the booth. Well? I held up the drive. We've got the real one. She raised an eyebrow. And now, I said, staring at the door Marshall had vanished through. We've got a war. Back at the cabin, Michael waited, eyes searching mine. You got it? I showed him the drive. He let out a breath. So it's over? No, I said softly. It's just beginning. Because now I understood. Grant had been a pawn. Hanson had been a courier. Linda had been a shield. And Marshall, the man who'd saved us, had just handed me a loaded gun made of data. And someone very powerful would kill to get it back. Holding that thumb drive felt like carrying a live thing, weighty, dangerous, humming with consequences. I slid it into my jacket and walked out into the cold pre-dawn like a man who'd decided he was done waiting. We'd made a short list the night before: James, for the law; Dana's Fed contact, for protection; and one journalist Dana trusted, the kind who didn't take money and who had the stomach for a story that would land him enemies. We moved slow and quiet, like carrying a box of glass. First stop was James's office. The old lawyer looked at the drive as if it were an indictment of his whole career. He fed it into a secure laptop, eyes flicking across line after line of ledger, invoice, and timestamp. Every name that had been a rumor sat there in ink, each entry circled by James's pen. This is cleaner than I dared hope, he said, voice soft. We don't own a court yet, but we can build the scaffold. He called his contact at the U.S. Attorney's office. A meeting was set within hours. They came quiet, professional, the kind of people who smelled trouble before it got loud. Dana's contact provided the muscle and the channel. A squad of agents would secure the material, take custody, and present it in a way the system couldn't look away from. We'll need to move fast, she told me. When politicians or contractors are involved, the first instinct of the powerful is to bury, bribe, or gaslight. We don't give them time. The journalist, a woman named Elena who'd taken down a crooked developer 3 years earlier, agreed to hold while the feds verified. No splash before the law has it, she said. If you want a lasting scandal, you wait until the institutions can't do their usual tuck and cover. So we did. We handed the drive up the chain in layers, James to the U.S. Attorney, Dana's team securing copies, Elena waiting by the phone. It felt less like revenge and more like setting dominoes so the law, slow and imperfect, would finally line up with justice. The wheels turned fast and then, as the world is sometimes cruelly arranged, slow. A subpoena here, an audit there. Quiet raids on shell companies. Grant's name was only one of many. The drive was a map to a machine, kickbacks to contractors, slush funds for campaigns, discreet payments that bought quiet cops and sleepy regulators. It was uglier than I'd imagined. There were moments I had to remind myself I wasn't doing this for revenge in the petty sense. I wanted the truth to be visible. I wanted the ledger wiped clean of my name. Mostly, I wanted my son to know that we'd stood up, together, and not shrunk when the world tried to swallow us. The first arrests came in the second week. Hanson, the courier, turned state's evidence. Grant's closest lieutenants landed in cuffs. The morning the senator's home was searched, I sat on my porch and watched the news truck lights reflect off the hood of the Camaro. My chest felt light and hollow at once. Linda was indicted, then given immunity in exchange for testimony. She'd been a participant by choice and stingy ignorance, and she wept when she told the grand jury she'd signed things she hadn't read. Watching her face on that courthouse footage was like watching a painting I loved get scorched. It hurt, but it also meant truth. Michael came by every evening. We ate the same food we always had, no frills, no performance. But there was new language between us: accountability, repair, the small measured sentences of people trying to do better. He told me once, half laughing, half crying, "You dragged me through hell, Dad." I told him, "I tried to pull you out of it." He smacked my shoulder and said, "Both." There were consequences I didn't like. Some clients I'd trusted for years called and asked awkward questions. The shop's old records needed final cleansing in public filings. My name was mentioned in hearings. My quiet life became an exhibit. But the ugly truth pouring into daylight removed the stink of doubt. That mattered more than appearances. Elena ran the piece on a Monday after the feds had everything they needed. It landed with the weight of a dropped stone, not sensational, but surgical. The article named names, reproduced select invoices, and quoted prosecutors promising to follow the money. The comment sections filled with outrage, the phone lines for the U.S. Attorney's office filled with tips. People who'd been paid to look away began to sweat. Grant went to prison. The senator resigned, citing a lapse in judgment, the way men with power always do when they are forced into small decency. Contractors lost contracts, reputations, and the comfortable immunity money buys. The system hiccuped and then, crucially, moved. One morning, James called and said, "They want to talk settlement as well as charges. They want to avoid trials that drag names into mud. But the feds will prosecute where needed. You did the right thing, Rick." I couldn't tell him I'd been thinking less about right and more about necessary. Linda did her time in community supervision, testified in open court, and then, slowly, began rebuilding. It wasn't pretty. She worked at a non-profit bookkeeping job, her nails rough from honest work. Michael visited her sometimes. They began awkwardly mending a rope one careful knot at a time. I went to see her once, sat in a coffee shop across from the woman I'd once married, and we traded a look that held all the years between us. No absolution, but conversation, which is more than we'd had for a long time. And me? I went back to the shop. The world is a quieter place when you fix things with your hands. I sharpened wrenches, balanced tires, and filed receipts. I drove the Camaro down the long stretch outside town and watched the road unspool. The drive had given me back something that mattered, not money, not status, but my name. At night, sometimes I thought of Marshall. He disappeared the way people who save others sometimes do, quietly, without thanks. Once, Dana told me she'd found records showing he'd been moved into a witness protection program. I like to imagine him somewhere warm, coffee in hand, reading a paper on a porch that wasn't his old one. If saving strangers gives you a place at peace, good for him. There were new knocks at my door over the months, neighbors with casseroles, an old friend asking if I needed a hand, little human threads sewing the rent of those months back together. Michael and I rebuilt the fence together, and for a moment, the smell of fresh cut wood felt like the right kind of victory. On the day the final indictment was unsealed, I stood in a courtroom and watched as evidence was laid out like a ledger of sins. The judge read names and numbers, and the room hummed with a kind of late justice. Afterwards, people gravitated toward us, Dana, James, Elena. We stood together in that ordinary hallway, and I felt something like peace. We'd survived because of strangers and stubbornness, and the small kindness of a man who'd once been someone's watcher. We'd been saved by patience, by law, by a willingness to make noise at the right time. We'd also been scarred. Scars aren't pretty, but they're honest. Months later, Michael took me to lunch and said, "You okay, Dad?" I thought of the drive, of the messages, of the nights of rain and the rail yard. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." He grinned. "Good. Now let's go fix that old truck." We left the diner laughing like people who've been given a second chance to be small and stupid and alive. At home that night, I opened an old box and found something I hadn't seen in years, a photograph of me and Michael by the lake, both of us filthy and grinning, the sun stupidly bright behind us. I taped it to the workbench. Sometimes, when the world gets complicated, you need proof that you can still come back to a grill and a wrench and a father's steady presence. Revenge, I learned, wears a different face than the one the movies show. It isn't fireworks and gloating. It's patient, boring, and bureaucratic. It's calling in favors, tracing accounts, and insisting that the truth be organized and presented so the law can do its work. It's not beautiful. It's necessary. The last shot of the story didn't belong to me. It belonged to the people who'd taken risks so I could keep my name. Dana kept working, James kept reading, Elena kept asking hard questions. Michael kept coming home for dinner. I kept the thumb drive in a safe deposit box until the trial. After that, it went piece by piece, into the books where it belonged, exhibits, testimonies, pages the public could read. The noise settled. The world did not suddenly become kind. Powerful people still maneuvered in the margins. But one by one, the big names had to answer. Some nights, I still woke up to the same old anxiety. But then I'd walk out to the garage, turn the radio on, and tinker for a while. The wrenches would clink. The world would make sense in small mechanical sounds. I'd look at the photograph on the bench and feel something that wasn't triumph or relief. Exactly, it was gratitude. For my son, for the strangers who intervened, for a delayed, messy, public kind of justice that let a man be his own name again. When the dust settled, I felt lighter. Not healed. Healing is slow, but honest. And there's a kind of peace in that. The quiet knowledge that when the world tried to make me vanish, I chose to stand and call it out. At dinner one evening, Michael raised his glass. To being ordinary, he said. And to being boring. I clinked mine against his, smiled, and said, I'll take boring over danger any day. We ate. We talked. The house hummed with small things, the kettle, the clock. Outside, night slipped in like a blanket, and for the first time in a long while, sleep came easy. If this story moved you, please support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, and leaving a comment with your thoughts. To continue the journey, click the box on the left for the next story. Thank you for being here.